This first foray into the fascinating, if slightly chaotic world of everyday law enforcement viewed through the lens of a budding criminal psychologist with a penchant for deadpan humor serves up a delicious trio of cautionary tales. We kick off with a classic, the vehicular pursuit, or as some officers likely call it, mandatory high-speed sightseeing. The protagonist, a gentleman in a silver Toyota Camry, provides a textbook example of evasion psychology. He's first spotted driving erratically, suggesting an immediate, almost reflexive flight response to perceived authority. What's crucial here is the officer's initial observation. The suspect left a motel known for a lot of gang activity, narcotic sales. This immediately establishes a high probability context for his subsequent behavior. The environment, it seems, is a powerful predictor of the crime, or at least the criminal. The assumption of a possible GTA Grand Theft Auto elevates the chase's stakes, but the real psychological jackpot is the suspect's subsequent circling West Covina. He's performing a vehicular security blanket maneuver. He's not fleeing to an unknown destination, he's retreating to a familiar, comfortable, and thus predictable operational area. He knows the game, dude, one officer notes, which is a neat street-level way of saying, this perp has an established criminal cognitive map. The humorous irony is that his attempt to leverage local knowledge, knowing the game, actually makes his capture easier for the police, who also know the neighborhood. It's like a criminal calling King Me on a checkerboard of his own design. The pursuit culminates with the suspect stopping, and his subsequent interaction with the police is a goldmine of post-apprehension rationalization. After being cornered literally and figuratively, he breaks down the classic psychological defenses. His immediate apology for the boast and the attempt to blame the entire high-speed felony on a relapse involving cocaine and alcohol is a transparent, though tragically real attempt at mitigating circumstances and shift agency. He's trying to reframe himself not as a willful lawbreaker, but as a victim of addiction, a good person who F times ed up tonight. The interrogation, particularly the officer's calm, focused questioning, relapsed with what man is a perfect low-key investigative technique. It allows the suspect to talk himself into a corner, inadvertently providing more information than he intends. The officer's final summation is clinically dry and devoid of emotional judgment. You're just gonna go for felony evading and evading on the wrong side of the roadway. No drama, just paperwork. A delightful juxtaposition to the earlier cinematic chase. The suspect's final oddly generous offer of his Starbucks, my clothes, my shoes, reveals a psychological state of total surrender and a desperate attempt to regain some semblance of control or goodwill by offering irrelevant items. Next up, we have Peter and the Purloined Plugin, a case of suspected burglary in progress that quickly devolves into a farce of poor decision-making. The police arrive at a business where a reporting party advised a male was trying to break into a business. The initial crime is burglary in progress, but Peter, in a move baffling to both law and logic, immediately takes off running. This is the most common and often most disastrous psychological failure in low-level crime, the flight response. As one officer dryly notes, when an officer tells you to stop, you have to stop, a fundamental truth Peter seems determined to ignore. His attempt to flee only to be cornered behind a gas station converts a potentially minor investigative stop into a definite detention. The humor here lies in Peter's persistent, almost whimsical post-capture defense, I was just fixing the cable. He's a self-appointed, unauthorized cable repairman in a time of crisis. The subsequent revelations that Peter is known for taking off from the cops all the time paints a picture of a repeat offender whose running is a deeply ingrained, almost compulsive behavioral script. The investigation confirms he took the camera down, and his weak defense, I put it up there, I was just assembling, everything is a pathetic attempt at reversal of intent. He is ultimately arrested for vandalism and the delay of investigation caused by his unnecessary jog. The officer's final, almost paternal advice sums up the psychological lesson perfectly. If you did nothing running, you just added something. Finally, a traffic stop on Joel for a license plate light provides a masterclass in probationary compliance psychology. and hidden criminality. Joel is nervous, which is typical, but his immediate low-resistance admission to having a little bit of dope is a fascinating tactical play, likely stemming from his prior experience and current status on probation for drugs. He attempts to minimize the crime right out of the gate, believing that partial honesty will engender leniency. The officer, however, is an expert in reading the psychological landscape. The probation status immediately gives the officer search conditions a key investigative leverage point. The discovery of the drugs is expected, but the discovery of a magnetic box hidden underneath places is the key investigative jump from simple user to street-level sales. This is a critical psychological distinction. The user is disorganized and focused on consumption. The dealer is organized, tactical, and focused on concealment and profit. The discovery of the $0, $22 caliber magazine, and subsequently the loaded gun one in the hole-in-the-door panel shatters Joel's dopey user persona and confirms the officer's suspicion of a higher-level criminal engagement. His final plea, "I would have told you, bro," regarding the gun is a desperate attempt to cling to the earlier partially honest narrative, but the evidence of the organized concealment of a loaded unregistered firearm paints him as a calculated felon. Joel's story is a tragicomic arc of attempted minimization thwarted by the physical evidence of his true criminal intent, providing a fascinating psychological case study in how small lies unravel bigger ones. The police work here is exemplary, using small traffic violations as pretext stops to leverage known criminal profiles' probation status into major felony arrests, a highly effective. Welcome to the second act of our psychological police procedural, where the criminal mind continues its Sisyphean struggle against the inevitable. Our first scene revisits the aftermath of a high-speed chase, delving deeper into the suspect's post-apprehension mental state. This individual, already facing felony evading charges, provides a raw, unfiltered example of crisis attribution. He desperately attempts to localize his criminal behavior, reducing a dangerous high-speed chase through the streets of West Covina to a single chemically induced relapse and a simple mistake. The core of his defense is an attempt to split the self, the good person who relapsed, versus the blacked out entity that drove the stolen car. From an investigative perspective, the officer expertly uses motivational interviewing, asking open-ended questions like, "Why'd you run?" and relapse with what man to allow the suspect to fill in the blanks. The man's spontaneous confession of drug and alcohol use not only explains his erratic driving, but also subtly justifies the officer's initial suspicion that led to the stop. It's a beautiful investigative feedback loop. The fact that he keeps circling back to his addiction, "I relapsed. My pastor and I ed up tonight," is a psychological anchor point he clings to, hoping it will explain away the intent required for the more severe charges. The officer's professionalism here is noteworthy. He's not emotional, merely collecting the facts necessary for the inevitable arrest for felony, evading a charge that speaks to the willful disregard for public safety rather than his personal demon. The humorous takeaway is that despite the Hollywood theatrics of the chase, the final result is a straightforward arrest dictated by the vehicle's movement, not the suspect's sob story. We then transition to the tale of Peter, the self-appointed technician, a case study in habitual non-compliance. The initial call is a burglary in progress, a high-stakes felony. The sight of a uniform, however, triggers Peter's ingrained, almost Pavlovian flight response. Peter's immediate frantic running when asked to simply come to my car is the clearest possible non-verbal admission of guilt, or at the very least a significant history of negative police encounters. From a psychological standpoint, his running is self-incriminating behavior. He elevates a simple police stop for suspicion based on the reporting party into a definite detention based on his flight. The officer's latest summation to Peter perfectly encapsulates the law's view of this psychology. If you did nothing running, you just added something. Peter's subsequent persistently absurd defense, "I was just fixing the cable. I fixed it for the little kids," is a classic example of low-level cognitive dissonance, where the suspect attempts to rationalize an irrational act with a flimsy pro-social explanation. He's trying to replace the image of a fleeing criminal with that of a community service volunteer. The punchline, of course, is the revelation that he has 2 out-of-state warrants and is known for taking off from the cops all the time, confirming that his behavior is not a momentary lapse of judgment, but a deeply entrenched counterproductive coping mechanism. Peter is a master of delaying the inevitable, turning a 5-minute conversation into a 10-minute sprint, which in the end only guarantees his ride to the station. The irony is his belief that his running is the lesser evil compared to the reason for the stop. The third narrative offers a comparative look at two distinct but related criminal profiles. First, the traffic stop on a red Infiniti, again emerging from a high-risk environment, a car meet known for sideshows and burnouts. The driver's immediate flight, including driving on the wrong side of the road and turning off his lights, is aggressive felony, evading a clear expression of fear and reckless disregard. The driver's post-stop explanation is pure teenage anxiety. I panicked, and I couldn't afford another one ticket. My mom's finding out. This is a younger, less seasoned criminal profile than the Camry driver. His motivation is not addiction or a deep criminal enterprise, but avoidance of parental or financial consequence. The officer adopting a more casual, almost condescending tone. I thought you were Dominic Toretto over there, bro. Deftly deflates the suspect's tough guy facade and confirms the triviality of the initial motivation that led to the felony. His crime is less psychological conspiracy and more a simple stupid decision under pressure, a case of miscalculated risk versus reward. The final case involves Mark pulled over for a faded license plate, which quickly leads to an arrest for possession of stolen property and burglary tools. Mark's nervousness and initial attempts to conceal his right hand are immediate non-verbal cues picked up by the officer, a key component of investigative streetcraft. His probation status for identity theft, a crime of deception, provides the critical investigative leverage for the search. Mark's defense of the stolen goods, I found a bag with a bunch of merchandise in it at the hotel room I was at, is a transparently ludicrous attempt at the innocent finder defense. The discovery of the magnetic device used to remove security tags, a definitive burglary tool, completely shatters his narrative. This is the moment where the psychological profile shifts from a man who found a bag to a calculated retail thief. The officer uses the object as a conversational weapon. You have the burglary tool right here. Mark is forced to drop his defense, admitting, "I'm not gonna say nothing, man." This progression from minor traffic stop to innocent finder to calculated silence is the perfect illustration of how police procedure, the probation research, can rapidly expose a hidden criminal enterprise. The humor is found in Mark's utterly unconvincing claim that he thought the expensive professional sensor-removing magnets were just thought they were magnets, a line that will surely be met with appropriate skepticism in court. The final tally of goods, well in excess of $1,000, confirms the felony status, a fitting end to a traffic stop that was anything but routine.